Good afternoon and welcome to our session on academic AI and academic writing. I am your facilitator, LeRoy Hill. I'm the director for CETL, the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. And here we are really honored to be working with the Graduate Studies, the School of Graduate Studies and Research, and put it on this session because we think it's necessary. And so with me in the room is my colleague, Mr. Mark Garcia. He is a research officer here at CETL. And so we certainly will be looking forward to your participation as we go through the sessions today. Now, I have a feeling that some of you are using, I'll put this, by the way, are using, I'm going to put this link in the chat. And this is the link that you would need for some of the activities that will be taking part in today's session. We won't need it right now, but certainly I'm putting it in so you have it early. All right, I get a feeling that some of you are actually using AI already. So if you can, share with me, you go to menti.com, or you could use the QR code, and then you type in the code 55127253 in the thing. You can certainly do that. All right, we'll give you just 1 minute, 2 minutes for that. All right. Thank you, Mark. Oh, I think I see an issue here. I haven't pressed present. All right. See, heard of it. Okay. They're coming in. They're coming in. Great. Okay, Teddy. Quite okay. All right. I think we get an idea that the vast majority of you are here for a good reason, because you've heard about it, but you've not really studied it. You've not given time to it. We see some of you use it in your writing occasionally, so that's great. And this actually maps on very well with this research from the Sloan, MIT Sloan, and they did this research in 2023, the fall of 2023, and we see here that students are using and have been using AI. You can see that 97, you could see that, use it for coursework. Some of you are using it for coursework. Some of you are using it to help you understand things better or differently. But we're seeing the vast majority of persons are using it. All right, using it for that standpoint. All right, how would you know that you're successful today in today's session? The aim or the goal of this session is really to get you to build capacity, raise awareness, increase awareness of AI and its applicability in your context as a writer, deepen your personal responsibility when it comes to using the tool effectively, what we call social, ethical, responsible use of artificial intelligence. And obviously, looking at how we use it, tools are meant to make our lives easier. Tools are meant to make our lives easier. And certainly, AI is one of that. All right, AI is one of that. I want to start with the whole idea of writing. Writing to be seen as a discursive social practice. And I love how Kama and Thompson, it's supposed to be Kama and Thompson, puts it out in the book. And they drew on fake loss, 3 dimensions of discourse. And so when you're writing, you're not writing in isolation of, you're writing from a sort of occupied or interrelated things that take place. According to fake law, you have different layers. So when you're writing, the text that is final is certainly being influenced by different things. And certainly you have your the particular, you might have some faculty specific things. You may have some political things to attend to. And then you have a wider socio-cultural practice, which looks at writing as, from your writing from that standpoint. So when we write, we are writing from a formal or informal standpoint, and it's connected with social structures. When we write with that. For social structures, it's a discourse. So it's part of a social practice. All right. And if you think of it from that way, then you will also see the second component we want to look at is writing helps us to trigger our thinking. So question in the chat, you can respond. In the chat, do you write to think, or do you think and then write? What's the relationship between thinking and writing? Who wants to join in? You could use the mic. You can certainly come in. Think, then write. Both, it depends. All right, anybody wants to hold the mic? I'm going to call on someone random. Go ahead and hold the mic. I write to think. I write to think. I do a combination of both. All right. This is quite interesting. I'm seeing you're saying both. And it's important for us to see it from that standpoint. It's important for us to see it from that standpoint that for persons, their writing actually has different ways, in different ways in which we write and what triggers. But the research, and we can point to that, the research, and I like the whole idea presented. I'll put this blog in the chat here, is that the whole idea of the relationship between thinking and writing, it's a dynamic, interrelated, especially when it comes to the critical component or aspect of writing. In fact, I often subscribe to the idea, if I want to think, I put a pen or get close to a laptop or start typing, and my thinking juices begin to flow. Now, some of you, it may not work that way, but the moment you begin to get that understanding, you may want to adopt that strategy. All right, let's hear. Describe your writing strategy. And then you can share what tools, what strategies, what approaches do you use as part of your writing strategy or your approach. I have approached it twice. All right. I'm looking for volunteers. There are 29 of us here. I'm looking for volunteers. What strategies, what approaches do you use as part of your writing? I see we have Dr. Gregory Kalisa. Can you share some of your strategies or tools that you approaches you use in your writing? You can take the mic.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm actually not a doctor as yet, but thank you for that.
Prophetic.
Thank you for putting it out there. I jot down, so I do an outline first to guide me, and then I would start based on that. That will be my initial starting point.
So you use an outline as a tool. Anyone else? Anyone else? Aisha? Or Alicia Edwards?
Hi, good day. So I would probably do the same in the chat I typed, that I would first jot out a guide, brainstorm, and then grow from there.
Okay.
That's my important ideas now. I will develop.
Okay, so it's quite interesting because I am thinking that you mentioned, so you do your similar to how Kalisa would have done us, and then you anyone here writes a lot or just write crazily? Anyone here writes, just write, they just write. And then they take out. There are those who write, just write a lot, and then they carve out. From a metaphor, you can carve out the tree out of the words that you have. Anybody use this approach? I'll be happy to know if you use that approach. I'll be happy to know if you use that approach.
Hi, good afternoon. So yes, I tend to do that a lot. I find that I ramble in my writing, so I write freely and then I go back and adjust.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Anyone else?
This is Mina from DOMS. I do something similar to Priya, but I start with some words. So, and the words that I think of would be related to whatever I'm writing on. And then I try to link those words and, move around things and then write freely, draft, adjust. And, it's a sort of a fluid process for me.
Great, great. I'm appreciating this, all right? I'm really, really appreciating this because what it really confirms is that writing as a discursive social practice might be different for everyone. And there are different tools, there are different strategies we use. But Kaisha is saying, I'm having difficulty starting my recording for myself and brainstorming, draft to get ideas and so forth. And so I would perhaps want to suggest that there are different tools and approaches. I like this. I really like this, the theories of writing, because it really recognizes that writing is a complex and interrelated or interconnected. If we were to go back again to Fair Clause approach, we'd recognize it's interconnected. And from looking at Hodges' framework of theories of writing, I think it really helps us to see that writing can be seen as a cognitive process. It can be seen as a socio-cultural process, as we look at Fair Clause process, a social cognitive self-efficacy process, ecological, all right? So you see this from different standpoint. And if we, for example, see writing as a socio-cultural setting, we will see the active engagement of persons within systems, socio-cultural systems. If it's a cognitive process, we mentioned triggering. So I write because I really want to force myself to think. So when I write, I think. Because it's just a natural flow for some of us. Some of us say, okay, I'm going to think and then write, but there is a natural inherent aspect of us when we write. It forces us to think, and there's research to support that. And so that is certainly an important component to understand. And understanding you as the writer, that provides a very good framework for us to see ourselves as writers. So writing is quite complex. And I'm minded that we mentioned earlier that we're using tools. I just put in this one here because I love activity theory. I love activity theory, which looks at the whole idea of tools that helps us to write. And if we can see here, AI from Ku and Gu is seen as that as a tool. So AI there is being seen as a tool. And so the intersectionality between human and AI is represented in this activity system very well. And we can see, obviously, AI is being seen as a very good aspect. It can be also seen from a tool in terms of conversations for learning. And we see this from the work here from Schappels 2023, when he writes about the whole idea of participants taking part in a conversation for learning. And AI can be part of that. You can have that sort of discursive process and using it as a tool. And that is why we are here. So I know some of you know this question or know this. I'm writing because I want to get my dissertation. But Berger here in Thompson's text puts the idea in a blog post, sorry, that why we write? We write because conversations. It's a conversation. So I don't want you to think that you're crazy, but you're actually having a dialogue in a very meaningful way with the paper or the computer or whatever. So it's that sort of way that they're looking at it from that standpoint. And I love to see that as tools, all right? Then there is the whole idea of the use of different tools in writing. Some of you mentioned that you use outlines. Any of you use skeletons? Writing skeletons? Anyone use writing skeletons? Yes, no? Are we still here? Yes, no in the chat. Press 1 if you're here with me in the chat. Great. So, and the research is clear on this, all right? Writing skeletons, Sauls and Frick 2012 suggest using skeletons to improve your writing, you know. And what is a writing skeleton? It is really a scaffold. And now the whole idea of scaffolding is a Vygotskian thing where persons who will get support by having something there already. So you're feeling the skeleton. In other words, the skeleton is there and you're just adding the meat onto it, all right, from a metaphor standpoint. And what does it look like? So you see things like those. So you see something like that. That's in one of the examples of the skeletons. In the Google Doc, you have examples. I think I put about 3 or 4 examples there. Because I do know that many of us have that challenge in making that leap or starting. How do I begin to turn that text into something meaningful? And so skeletons is another tool that you can use. Okay, so we've looked at outlines. So Ryan is saying, after seeing the skeletons, yes, I do that. And many of us do that. And the research there is supported there. Here's another skeleton here that looks at a paper from that standpoint. Here's one that looks at the thesis. And I did add some examples, additional examples in the shared Google Doc. So you can look at that. But I will perhaps recommend that you can begin to use some of these to really scaffold you into writing. There are persons who have some very, very good way of tightening the text, and this is one of the tools that we use to do that. Again, looking at tools, we want to really now jump to the whole idea of artificial intelligence as a tool. Today's session is on AI and academic writing. All right. So I really want to look at how artificial intelligence supports academic writing in a very meaningful way. All right. So we want to be able to do that. Now, the idea for artificial intelligence is nothing new, really. The idea, the naming of it actually was, and the use of in the 50s. Only in recent times we really come to the idea of the generative AI, which is a branch of artificial intelligence. All right, so we see the history of AI being used is something that is clear. We'll be using them, and you have 3 major categories. You have the reactive. Some of us who use Alexa, we have the predictive. So tools like Netflix, tools like YouTube, they have algorithms, artificial intelligence, and that kind of predict what you want to look, and they provide recommendations. But then there is the generative, and the generative is what that has been providing that greater means of concern and fear among some persons and some excitement among students, because we saw the research earlier that students are using it. All right. Which would you be most comfortable with using AI? Let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. I want to hear from you.
Grammar checker.
Grammar checker. Excellent. Anyone else? Which would you be most comfortable? Which are you most comfortable with
Writing
idea
assistant or
generator,
writing coach.
writing coach. Excellent. I like that one. Jamie, is it? Writing coach.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. I love that one. I think Kathleen is typing grammar checker, writing coach or assistant. Okay, I'm going to put Carolyn on the spot. Carolyn, how do you see AI as your writing coach or assistant? Can you explain a little further?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. For me, I've started looking at AI. Actually, it was my daughter who told me about it. Sometimes when I'm stuck in getting ideas as to how to start a paper, so she would say, well, what is the keyword? What is one of the things that you want to know about? And you just put it in. So for me, I found that it kind of triggers that thought in my head as a coach. So it helps with the ideas, help me to solidify the ideas in my head. I don't need something to write it for me, but just, because I can't be talking to persons physically, brainstorming with them, but having the coach, the assistant there with me, it helps triggers the ideas and also give me that a sense of assurance in my mind that, okay, I'm on the right track.
Yes. So it's like a scaffold as well. It's similar to the skeleton then. Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Anyone else? Can I call on someone else? Anyone else? Priya?
Sorry. Hi. So similar to Carolyn, I so I've used like the search engines to help me get ideas on how to form my thoughts and put it across in my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. But the thing is, AI is a tool. It's here to stay. It's not going to go away. It's here to stay. It's ubiquitous. It's in everything. It's in our cell phone. It's in our smartwatches. It's in everything. It's going to be in everything. And if we look at the whole idea of Internet of Everything, we will go back to the whole idea of the Industrial Revolution, or what we will call the Industrial Revolution version 5.0, where we will be looking at the whole idea potential and opportunities of how AI, if we look at the whole idea of Industry 5.0 at the end, right here, we will see the whole idea of the intersectionality between human and artificial intelligence being a key part of this movement and helping us in so many different things. Many of us know and use technology to make our lives easier, but the question is, how are we going to use it? I like how Sharples and Gretchen puts it in terms of the roles, and it can be seen as a possibility engine. It provides alternative ideas. So those of you who say the idea generator, that's very good. The whole idea of a Socratic opponent, it asks you questions based on something there. It can be a coach, a guide on the side, a personal tutor. It can be a study bunny, a co-designer. If you're designing something, it can help you with that, and so forth. So the opportunities are endless. I'm going to switch now. Anybody has any questions before we move on? I want to switch now to my co-presenter today, who is going to help me to understand. I need to understand something, so I'm going to switch to Vicky. Vicky is my interactive avatar. All right, so I'm going to start doing that and allow the opportunity for her to really help me understand myself as a research user. Hi, Vicky. I'm LeRoy. How are you?
Hi, LeRoy. Nice to meet you. I'm here to help with any role-playing scenarios you'd like to practice.
Okay.
What kind
so
of conversation are you looking?
So
Great.
Vicky, yes, I'm a new researcher, very, very new, and I am having an issue with understanding my literature review. Is there any metaphors you can share to help me?
Absolutely, LeRoy. Think of your literature review as a map. The papers and studies you read are landmarks. Your job is to understand how these landmarks connect, showing the path others have taken and where gaps in the journey are. Your review should guide readers through this landscape, highlighting important features and unexplored areas. Does that help?
It helps, but can you give me
I'm glad
another,
that helped.
can you give me another metaphor that I can maybe get a stronger understanding?
Sure. Imagine your literature review is like building a house. Every paper or study you read is a brick. Your job is to find the strongest, most relevant bricks and fit them together to form solid walls. These walls support your... Awesome. If you have more questions on your literature review or anything else, feel free to ask. How can I assist you further?
Well,
You're welcome, LeRoy.
thank you so much,
Take care,
Vicky.
LeRoy.
But don't run away, Vicky. Stay with me. I am now thinking of working on my literature review on climate change in the Caribbean context. And I need some ideas on how I could use at least 5 peer review articles. I'm really struggling, so I need some tips and recommendations. What would you advise me? Hi, Vicky, are you still there?
I'm here, LeRoy.
Okay,
How can I assist you further with your literature review?
so I'm
Do you need
thinking,
more detailed advice on... Great.
yeah,
you
so
have-
I'm thinking I'm doing a paper on climate change in the Caribbean context, and I'm having issues with my literature review. So any ideas, tips, or recommendation on how I can go about designing my or developing my literature review? I think, Vicky, are you still there? Anyway, internet.
Vicky
So
froze.
yeah, I think Vicky froze. And so I could choose someone else actually. So maybe I should choose, let me choose Wayne. I'm going to choose Wayne and ask Wayne very same question to see how he's going to assist me in doing that. I see someone say it's scary. Hi, Wayne. I am LeRoy, and I'm trying to work on a paper called Climate in the Caribbean Context. I need some ideas as a coach. How do I go about designing this literature review? I need to at least have some journals in there. Any tips or recommendations in really crafting this literature review?
Hey, LeRoy. For your literature review, focus on sources that discuss climate impacts in the Caribbean. Look at historical patterns, current challenges, and proposed solutions. Integrate regional case studies and global comparisons. Any specific areas you're interested in?
Well, I really need idea how, I mean, literature review scares me. It really scares me. How do I go about designing a very impactful literature review based on that?
I get it, it can be daunting. Break it down, start by identifying key themes. Search for respected articles and books on those. Summarize findings, compare studies, and identify gaps. Check out reviews for structure ideas. And remember, it's a step-by-step process. How can I assist more?
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. It was so helpful. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna have to move right now.
You're welcome, LeRoy. I'm glad I could help.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck with your literature. You're welcome. Take care.
So, some of you were scared by that. Some of you were, I have to turn off, else he's gonna be continuing talking. Some of you felt, okay, fine, this is wow, this is great. Now, I mean, can you imagine the possibilities, the endless opportunities that you can use? I'd like to maybe get one or two of you reflect on looking at that, after looking at that, how you think now the various role. Martha, oh my goodness, yes. How you think the various roles will something like that. Would it enhance yourself as an academic writer in your writing, in your whole research process? What are some ideas that you have thinking at this time? Anyone?
Hi, Dr. Hill. I'd like to chime in. This is
Yes,
Martha.
definitely, Martha. Go ahead.
I was blown away. I was blown away because part of my research is looking at digital technologies. That is my research area, and I'm interested in that. PhD sociology student, but this, it gets me excited, scared at the same time, excited about the possibilities. My biggest concern is, how do we really harness technologies like this for the betterment of society and not to abuse it? But this is exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much we can do with these tools.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Martha. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And so it's a tool. By the way, this is an avatar, and the avatar sits on top of the AI API, application program interface. So it actually uses AI, but the avatar has to be trained in terms of you recording a video. And in fact, with this tool from HeyGen, you could actually create your own avatar and have it kind of front facing. So this is something that you can do presently, Martha. So endless opportunities. We can learn anything dependent. It doesn't have to be a brick and mortar thinking. Immediately, I felt like it could help me learn foreign exchange. Yes, it can. Definitely, it can help you. Amazing, Marsha is saying that. Anyone else? So Martha, thank you so much. Anyone else?
I think it could definitely help save time when you're trying to figure out the gaps in research, because I think it probably takes a longer time to read through all the research yourself. So having basically a personal coach to help you through the process would probably make it a lot easier to begin the research itself.
Yeah, and that's quite powerful, which means you are not alone. You have AI as your side as a companion. All right. Anyone else? Thank you so much for that. Anyone else? We'll take one more before we move on.
I find it to be very useful to help you narrow down a broad topic to something specific that you're looking at. And same thing like was said before, help you save time in going through multiple papers to find what you're looking for.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I would perhaps think that many of us could benefit from talking to Vicky or Wayne. Nothing wrong with that, because you're using them as a maybe Socratic opponent or writing coach, and you can see the possibilities are endless. But there is the issue of ethics. That's just one of the challenges. There's the ethical, social, responsible use. There are many other challenges, but ethics remain one of the big ones. And privacy issues. Of course, it got my name. Is it going to store my name and remember me next time? I'm training the system every time I use it. And therefore, who benefits from that? Am I getting money from training the system? There are some questions that classifies this as a possibility for concern for many. And we see academic integrity there. We know from that standpoint. All right. Now, I want to stress here that the internet has the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you're using AI, AI draws on what is on the internet, which means that as users, we ought to make it we ought to get a clear understanding that we are still the ones, in the driver's seat. All right, we are still the one making that decision, which is why we talk about the social and ethical responsible use of AI. And I'm going to share with you some things here. I'm going to share with you some things because it's going to determine how you use AI, especially for your research. And there are some implications that we need to take into consideration. I like how UNESCO actually gives us that push to understand further. It says here, researchers, teachers, learners should be aware that generative AI systems operate as black boxes, and that it is consequently difficult, if not impossible, to know why particular content has been created. A lack of explanation of how the outputs are generated tends to lock users in the logic defined by the parameters designed by generative AI systems. You know, these parameters may reflect specific cultural, commercial values, and norms that implicitly bias the content produced. So this is why we ought to use AI from a social, ethical, responsible aspect. And I like this. There are some recommendations that UNESCO has put forward. You can access that. You can certainly access that. And so this is a link. I think the link is in the chat. Thank you, Mark, for that. And so you can use that as a way of guiding you in using AI, responsibly using AI. I want to stress here, you are in the driver's seat. So it is your responsibility as a researcher, as an academic writer, to understand the institutional and journals too. If you're going to publish, some journals will say, if you use AI, we won't accept you know. So you need to understand the institutional context in the use of AI. And that's part of the responsibility. That's part of the social and ethical responsible aspect. And when you use it, you ought to acknowledge how you use it. And we're seeing different tapestry of different things here. There's the whole idea of balancing accuracy and quality. That's a concern. We see that in the internet, the large language model, which actually the AI draws on, has information that may not be accurate. What does that mean to you as a researcher? You are still responsible. So you want to say your dog ate your homework. The dog did not choose that and do that for you. All right. So it's important for us to see it from that standpoint. All right. And the whole idea of balancing AI with your own creativity. I love that part because it means, therefore, that we are concerned about the whole idea of critical engagement with you know, text and so forth. And AI can assist with that. There are some that would say critical thinking is being challenged, but that's a debate that continues even in persons using Google, persons using different search engines. And so that is a discussion that continues. I think one of the key things we ought to understand is, and primarily US copyright law is very strong in the international setting. And so AI content is not subject to copyright because the computers, AI, are not human beings, and copyright is for humans. And it is interesting because the thing about it is that once you modify it, you know, you add it to it, then it means that you can copyright it as the human person modifying and so forth. So there are some gray areas. These are some of the blurry areas in terms of AI use and so forth. And so it's important for us to see it from that standpoint. All right. This is important, very important. If your research has funding from an agency, if your research has potential for, you know, funding, and, you know, it's important because when you're translating the research or implementing it or having it at a later stage, and you would have used AI, it will have implications for IP. So it's important for us to see how we're using AI, that we're not breaking any IP regulations or rules. The reason being here, therefore, you know, AI is a tool that definitely we don't understand how it operates. And so it may be pulling some of your research elements and sharing it with other persons, and you don't know. And obviously the idea of AI and open education is a powerful opportunity, but then too, you might be thinking of monetizing your research, and that may be an issue if you add a lot of it in that setting. All right, so I think we ought to use it and knowing very well of those issues. I think one of the issues that we talk about is the whole idea of confidentiality. It speaks to the whole idea of data retention policies. We have those as part of our ethical considerations when we write and do research. And so we ought to be careful when and when we're adding information to AI or what we're adding. It is your responsibility to verify and comply with these restrictions before using AI in that way. How many of you do this presently? How many of you do this? Yes, no? Yes, no, in the chat. But this is something that is being done more. Or how many of you do this? Acknowledgement. All right. I acknowledge that this document was edited and proofread by OpenAI and Grammarly, an AI-powered writing assistant to increase clarity and correct grammar errors. Some of it robotic, but that was the idea. I just to tell you that you can do that. And I think this is part of the evolving and emerging practice as students. It's not saying you can't use this tool, because some of us do use Grammarly, and you need to indicate that, because Grammarly has a very strong AI algorithm right now that actually really changes a big difference in writing. So these are some of the things and instruments that you are encouraged to use in the UE setting. The first one, which is this one here, you're required to declare in your assignment, at the end of your assignment. All right. And so this is something that if you haven't seen it from your instructor, perhaps they haven't seen it yet, but that's part of the policy and framework that certainly will be used. Go ahead, Janelle.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Hurst. I joined a little bit late, but it's interesting that you were discussing the declaration. One of the things I was concerned about in terms of using AI, like you mentioned, Grammarly is one of the things students would use to kind of help them with sentence construction, etc., etc. How does that affect? I mean, we know all universities use things like Turnitin, and sometimes that could kind of affect your reports and data generated for Turnitin. Any advice on that?
Thank you, Janelle, and that's a quite appropriate question. My response to that is that not every university uses Turnitin or even plagiarism checker. There are some universities that work on the premise of the philosophy behind it. And so the research is clear. The research is clear. I want to go to this article here. The research is clear. Academic integrity and AI is a big thing, but equally, these so-called tools, as I would say, plagiarism checker, the research is clear that they are sometimes not that accurate, many times not that accurate. And so the push and the pathway that many universities push is the whole idea of trying to get it from an honor code, an ethical standpoint. And most persons who do research in ethics and so forth, that has been shown to be more effective than actually using some of these tools, because some of these tools say that they're doing but they're not that well in doing it. However, you can actually, if you're a good teacher, you can actually detect AI from looking at the various script and so forth. All right. So yes, you can use these tools, but I would say, and sometimes they give you a response, because just to remember that some of the responses that it may have picked up may have been something that it used in a very, very meaningful way from that standpoint. Jamie, go ahead.
So when I had written something, and I usually pass it through a plagiarism checker, but now they have the plagiarism with the AI in one. And it was an original piece, but yet it's saying it was AI detected. And I'm like, but how? And then the other thing is with plagiarism, there's only so many ways you could rewrite one particular information. Eventually, you will end up being plagiarized no matter what you do, because there's only so many ways you could rewrite that same information. And this will obviously affect your grade on Turnitin. And if they using Turnitin solely to say that you plagiarize it, it will be bad for you. So how they
Yeah.
adjusting to that?
Yeah, you're so right. And this is why we encourage our faculty and persons doing that. Don't rely on the percentage and so forth. Go in and look at it, look at the text. And you should know your students. You should know your students. You should know your students' writing, especially if they are submitting drafts and so forth. One of the strategies we say is allow your students to submit drafts to you. So you know that's something that's looking strange from this first time. You know, it is certainly. But yeah, and there are some universities. Let's do a quick search on Google. You'll see a number of universities that say that they are not enabling that AI detector of Turnitin because it gives you erroneous things. You just confirmed it, Jamie, in terms of you're writing and then it detects it as AI when you did it. And so those are some of the challenges we are seeing, and we want to raise awareness around that. Don't depend on the plagiarism checker because it's not accurate. However, I think the greatest or the better evaluator would be perhaps the human being who can detect. Look at this. Can you look at this? This is from the University of Bath. And this is a AI generated piece of text. And you see where it recognized that this definitely seems a little bit off. You notice the two orange, understand the timing of exercise in relation to nutrition. It repeats the very same thing again. So we can observe patterns. You know, consuming carbohydrates and protein, the language is just too simple. So these are some of the things that we can do. Anyone who's trained, any good teacher who's trained can actually see and recognize AI from that standpoint. Did I trigger anything in anyone? Anyone wants to say anything?
I actually had a situation with that before where it was my original work, but the Turnitin checker kind of made it seem as though, you know, I plagiarized it. It would be words like the and in. So what I did was that I sent screenshots to my lecturer pointing out the things that would have made the score a little higher and asked them if they would be using, I don't know, their discretion. And they acknowledged it and said they understood and they would use their discretion for the plagiarism checker.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think some universities go, these companies, let me just go back again, the commercialization part about it. Now think about it from a different layer. As an institution, you want to really think, okay, yeah, we're gonna catch them. We're gonna catch the students. And so let's tap into what Turnitin does. There are some institutions that recognize that error on the part of the tool, and therefore they have deactivated that. And so I am making it clear here that don't depend on that to really help you see if your work. I would say let's try and use that honor code. So the honor code and acknowledging or indicating, and there is also in the elements that actually tells you there's an honor code system, and all of this actually aligned to the policy, academic dishonesty policy, because if you're having the AI do the work for you, then you're not the person doing it. And it's like paying someone to do the work for you, and that is dishonest. And I think all of that, one of the key things institutions are doing is to ensure we're making that clear, raising awareness. There are penalties, and so steep penalties when it comes to using those tools, rather than being a police, as in some cases. All right. What about you may have seen this, some of your faculty or some of your teachers would have encouraged you to use one of these, mixed use. Some may say, okay, restrictive. I don't want to use restrictive, but this one is not sensible for many persons because they recognize that, hey, the students will still use it nonetheless. All right, so what we ought to do rather than ignoring it is to teach them the social responsible use, give them clear parameters how we can use it, and explain from that standpoint. All right. I want to go here because I know some of you who used the prompts. Which type do you use? The prompt, and by the way, the prompt is a text that you put into the generative AI and you type it in, it's a query, and it returns back a response. So the sort of typing and phrases that you use in that text chat, in that text box, is what we call the prompt. But prompt can be simple, it can be conversational, just as we had a conversation in audio with Vicky. It can also be structured. Now, as academic writers, the one that would help you most is the structured prompt, the structured prompt. When we say of structure, we mean looking at it from this point here. All right. So a prompt is specific input, as we mentioned, given to the AI to model or initiate or trigger its response. And so providing context, providing the task, instruction, and this comes from Tamsin, sorry, and there are others that actually pushed a different approach. So this may look a little bit crazy for you now. I don't know if you've seen that on the screen, but this is Carrigan 2023. This is his recommendation based on the algorithms. You get less percentage hallucination or fake things being given to you if you follow through on using that approach. All right. I like the one I have in the document. Any of you access the Google Doc? If you can't, let me know. But it's in the chat room. If you came in late and don't have access to it, we can still put it back. You have access to a number of different prompts. The first one that's there is an example right here. This is an example of a structured prompt. So in this structured prompt, you see, Jamie, okay, we see here, this is an example of a writing coach. You can run this on your own and test it out, but I placed it there for you to see as a tool. In fact, we might go ahead and run it in a while. But I want you to look at this video quickly, because this video gives a very good idea of why do we use prompt engineering and from that standpoint.
If you use the perfect prompt when you prompt ChatGPT, or if you prompt Bard or Bing, you're going to be really blown away by the result that you're going to get. It's going to save you a ton of time. So I've studied this for 3 to 4 hours a day since GPT-3 came out. I've taken a bunch of courses, anything I could get my hands on, and tested a whole lot of different ways to prompt these platforms. And I think I've crafted a really useful formula that you could implement for pretty much any situation. So I want to share that with you in this video. And hopefully after this, you could just copy and paste this prompt, because most people that use ChatGPT, Bard, or Bing are stuck kind of in beginner's mode. They just ask a question and then they just try to follow up with the AI to get the answer they're looking for. But if you give the right prompt up front, most of the time you're going to get to the answer without having to revise it a ton of different times. Let me show you exactly how it works. Now, the way I crafted this perfect prompt, it came from 7 best practices that I'll share with you. This is basically the most effective way of prompt engineering, these 7 different steps. And this is going to go inside of our formula. So these steps will help you understand it a little bit better. And I'll show you some real life examples that are going to be handy. Number 1 is you need to be specific. You want to give as much detail as you can. So a lot of times people speed this up because they want to see an output and they'll think they'll revise it after that. But don't do that. Be very specific. Here's a super simple example. You could ask it, tell me about all the different dog breeds that exist. Or the more specific example is, what are the different breeds of small dogs suitable for apartment living, right? You get a lot more specific, so your answer is going to be a lot more relevant. Number 2 is you need to state your intent. So you need to state that in the prompt. And this is a good example. A lot of times people say, explain quantum physics, and then you're going to get some kind of a long response. But if you gave it your intent, so in this case, I'm helping my son with his science homework. I want to explain quantum physics. Can you explain it in a very simple way, right? So then I get a very specific answer that is tailored for that. So that is all about stating your intention. So then the output is designed for that. Number 3 is you got to use correct spelling and grammar the best you can. Even though the model is going to figure that out, a lot of times a small spelling or error is going to send it in the wrong direction. So even if you do spell check by right-clicking on something that you misspelled, correcting it there, is going to a lot of times ensure that your prompt actually gets you the best response. Number 4 is direct the output format. Give it some direction on what kind of output you're looking for. So could you list the steps to break down chocolate cake, right? So then it's going to give you a step-by-step guide. Or could you explain a process in a paragraph? Then it's going to know, it's going to give you a paragraph, not a whole bunch of text. Number 5 is following up with questions, because sometimes even if you use the perfect prompt, you still need to give it some follow-up to clarify it or change one of the inputs in the formula that I'm going to give you. Now, number 6, if you don't get the result you're looking for, experiment with different phrasing. Okay, so sometimes the model doesn't understand how you phrased it, but this perfect formula, if you use it in the order I'm going to show you, it's going to get you the result most of the time. But if it doesn't, just experiment with phrasing and moving things around. And number 7 is sometimes I do a fact-checking prompt. So I usually get my results, then I feed it back and I say, can you fact check this statement or whatever output I got? This just ensures that it runs through it one more time. Now let me show you the formula. This formula, if you use it based on all the different specific information I gave you already in this order, and I'll give you some examples, you're gonna get results that are gonna be far better than what you're getting right now. So here's the formula: context plus specific information plus your intent plus the response format that you want. That equals the perfect prompt. So I'll give you a couple different examples here. So context. In this case, I'm a beginner cook. That's the context, right? I set that up. Then specific information. I'm trying to make Italian cuisine, okay? Then my intent is, can you provide me, this is what I'm asking it, my goal, can you provide me a simple and easy to follow recipe? And the format that I want could be a numbered list from 1 through 10. So then it will just try to summarize that in that way. So here's the perfect prompt. I'm a beginner cook trying to make Italian cuisine. Could you provide me a simple and easy to follow recipes and put them in numbered order from 1 through 10? Okay. And you could give it something else. Make me lasagna, for example. Can you give me the perfect recipe? So you could even add more context in the formula, but this is the perfect prompt. So now you copy and paste this prompt, and then you're going to get a result that's far better than going back and forth a whole bunch of time. And it'll save you sometimes 5-10 times the amount of the back and forth it usually will take. Here's another example. Context is I'm a software developer. The specific information is I'm working on a Python project. Now the intent is, can you explain how to implement exception handling in Python? And the response format.
So we get the idea that a structured prompt is what is going to give you a much better, a much more realistic response. So many of us, we are tempted to just go ahead, do the casual, but those will not give you the best result. And which is why we recommend in the Google Doc, you have the anatomy of a good prompt. I like this because this one is much simpler. It's not that 7 steps as opposed, and you can see some recurring things and comparably in that sense. And I like the clarifying part. I usually do that because I want to ensure that the generative AI understand what I am requesting. And you will notice that I would have added it here in the example. Clarify, let me know if you understand what is required. And it will tell you, this is what you've asked me to do. It's more or less clarifying. And you can actually respond and say, no, this is not what I asked you to do. So it will allow you to refine it from that standpoint. All right. Any questions? Anybody? How have you been using? Share with how have you been using? Those of you who've been using AI, share how you've been using the prompt and anything that you've discovered about it. Denisha, we have all tones. Anyone?
Hi, good night. Good day, sorry. I have tried using it. However, I'm a bit skeptical, so I don't use it fully and put it in my assignment. I like to have it I like to write my assignments in my own words and such. So I'm very skeptical about the ChatGPT and all of that. But this session here is very informative, and now I feel a little bit okay to try to implement it in my research.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Denisha. Appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
I
Joshua?
have been using, yes, Joshua. I have been using the ChatGPT for a couple different things, more so to get like definitions or further explain technical topics rather than using it for academic writing. So I would use it to get a breakdown of if I need to further understand something that's kind of technical, I would usually ask the app to explain it to me, sometimes like as if I were a child or as someone who is inexperienced in a certain topic. And usually I found that it helps a lot in terms of getting to understand topics better. And even if you ask it for referencing articles, they would reference articles for you, and then you could just go and look for them and see if it's actually applicable to the information that you need. So I have found the app to be quite useful in those instances.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We want to take a break now. We'll take a break for 5 minutes. And when we come back, we want to look at the prompt a little bit more differently and see some tips. And then we will get to look at some tools. I know that one of the reasons you're here, you want to see some tools in action. All right. So can we take a break? And yes, Aisha, yes, the question is Aisha. Someone is asking MRIC. Yes, they have the AI. I think it's enabled in our context. Yeah. Any questions? All right, welcome back. I hope you had a good break. It's important for us to take breaks, especially many of us who've been sitting at desk, and so this is our commitment to wellness. I want to thank you for staying on. If you're here with me, press 1 in the chat. If you're still with me, 1. I want to do a presence check. Are you here with me or are you doing something else? In the chat, can you just put in 1 quickly? I just need to do a quick presence check. If you can do that, that'd be great. All right. All right. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Denisha, thank you so much as well. I can see that. I can see that. By the way, I just received a bag. I don't know if any of you are participating in the UE International Half Marathon. This is a plug-in for them. I just received my package. I'm so honored to receive my package. Any of you are taking part? Let me know. Put it in the chat. That'll be great. I'll be seeing you on Sunday if that's the case. Carolyn, you should come. You should come. Anyway, let's go back to what we are doing here. We are here to do that. We're here to do that. Working, volunteering. We're here to do this. So I wanna really bring to your attention the reason for focusing a little bit on that, and then we'll move on to some more practical things. I want to see you guys doing that. Here are some tips. I'm repeating some of the things that's mentioned before because it's important. So be specific. If you ask a vague question, then you will get a fake answer. It says vague answer, but I say fake. It will just be hallucinating. All right, so the more detail that you give it, the better response that you will get. And so that's important. Your intent. What are you intended? So that is why we often see persons give the AI a role. It gives it a role, and that's important. In the prompt examples, the first one you will see that I gave that example, we see it from that standpoint. All right, and you may want to use different phrasing and be sure that you use, ensure that your diversity and inclusion, your text is not biased in any way, because it will certainly give you and follow through that same thinking and process that you're adopting. All right, there are a number of new tools emerging that persons are using. I don't know how you think about using the paper explainer, explainpaper.com, which you can upload. You upload a paper and it explains it for you, gives you a summary. Some of you right now might be using ChatGPT or even Gemini to actually give you a take on abstracts and things like that, because you may want to look at it and compare and so forth. And obviously we have Grammarly, which is one of those that most academic writers are using, because it helps them to really relate from that standpoint, make things differently. All right, so I don't know if any of you know who Seymour Papie, but Papie was a contemporary of Piaget. He his version of constructivism was called constructionism. And in that, he advocated for, there was a book that he wrote, The Children's Machine. And in there, he promotes the whole idea of tools, tools that help us in our context. Yeah, famous scientist and author who wrote books like Mindstorms. I remember that. And so he says, I'm convinced, are you convinced, that the best learning takes place when the learner takes charge? So I can be here, I can demonstrate to you, and I can demonstrate to you for a long time, but I think I want to prepare you, Carolyn, for you to work. We're going to work in groups in a while because I really want to see you using it. But before we do that, I would perhaps ask your group, all groups, to attempt the first prompt. Prompt number one, prompt number one. And then we are going to just to test it, just to test it. So you can copy and paste, you can make changes to the text, by the way, to make it stronger. So we're going to open the breakout rooms now. Mr. Garcia is going to open the breakout rooms now. We will be okay. We will be looking at from that standpoint. So in the Google Doc, there is a Google Doc that has there. I would just perhaps just point this here. This is what we're doing. We're going to do this. We're going to do a group activity. I'm going to ask that you we do this for this is wrong spelling. Assigned collaborative group. And so we're going to work in. We're going to give 40 minutes. Let's do it for 40 minutes because I want to ensure that you're able to work collaboratively in your group. So if we can open the collaborative groups, then you will see what you're working on. The assignments are actually in. I'll just share the document. I'll switch to the browser. So in the shared document, you have the instructions for the group activity, which is on page 13. And so you have the first thing we're doing is we're going to create the prompt. We're going to create the prompt at first, all right? And so you have access to that. I'm giving you 10 minutes to work to do the prompt. Someone can be your time checker, all right? Someone can be your time checker, and so you can do that. In your group, we're going to ask you to do at least two. The actual two, we're going to tell you which two you're going to do. So you get a feel of two or at least two different settings in which you can use AI for academic writing, just to really see, is this something that you'll do? And then we will go to the actual implementation, which is going to be 15 minutes for that, 15 minutes for the implementation, and then we'll do the evaluation for 5 minutes. How is that? How is that? All right. All right. So you write in the prompt, because the writing the prompt is very, very important. And we will get things going from there. So I will tell you which ones that you'll be working on. We'll tell you that. All right. The groups are ready, so go ahead and open them up. Groups are ready, so go ahead and open them up. So please go ahead and select your group.
And we'll be moving from group to group to give you a guide with the instructions.
Yes, we will. All right. Welcome back. I know that many of you were testing out. As I said, we ended out with the whole idea of doing is where you actually learn. And we just want to give each group, and there's 3 groups, we want to give each group the opportunity to share how you think, what you think about this. Is this something that is going to make your life easier? Do you think it's okay to do or use it the way you're doing it? And you have access to the prompt. Apologies again for giving you the wrong link there, but you have access to the Google Doc. That Google Doc, you could go through it and practice on your own because you recognize that you can certainly use that from that standpoint. So we'll go with group 1. And you don't have to share your screen. You just give a short reflective account of your group's activity. And then we can move on. We can give each group 2 minutes. Group
Okay,
one?
I can say something really quick, Roxanne.
Yes, Roxanne, go
So
ahead.
I was described. Right. So this this is really amazing, I must say. And I would have used ChatGPT before, but for very, very minor I wouldn't say, even say an assignment, but to maybe write to make a letter sound better or an email, and that was about it. But I noticed that, as someone was saying, whatever you put into it is what you get out of it.
Yeah.
And learning how to write the prompts is what will really make the huge difference
Yes. Yes.
in the output that you get,
Mhm.
whether it's ChatGPT or whoever. Yeah, because based on this short session that we had today so far, well, the small part from the skeleton that we looked at, and you put the input, and you notice that it's very refined from what I had before. It refined the chapters, not the chapters, the paragraphs that I had from before. So this could be this looks very promising.
So it's a tool. It's like you discovering the calculator. You can use a calculator rather than going and taking a piece of paper and going long run. You could do this quite quicker and so forth. Carolyn, go ahead, Carolyn.
I have a question. So as Roxanne, I was in Roxanne's group, and she had put in a document that she had already done before, if I'm not correct, mistaken. So this would have been her ideas, her research and everything. And then she placed it into AI and it refined her information. My question is, when we're looking at plagiarism and we're looking at the contribution by AI, how do we navigate that?
And this is where you have, Carolyn, very important question. This is where you have to decide, is this something I'm going to use and submit as my own? Because it's not certainly not my own. When you use Grammarly, and Grammarly changes the structure of your sentence, that is AI. It's your ideas, but your ideas are now being restructured in a different way. And sometimes this is where the AI tool will trigger and so forth. But you certainly want to, it's still your ideas, and you are the one deciding whether or not you want to accept or you want to change it. It doesn't make it clearer, and you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that you use AI to help you revise your sentence structure. You notice one of the ones I used previously, I would have used where this person said, I acknowledge that this document was edited and proofread by OpenAI and Grammarly, an AI-powered writing assistant to increase clarity and correct grammatical errors. Caroline, go ahead.
So my next question is that now acceptable by the university?
Well,
so
the university,
if Roxanne was to go to present that last document, even though she put in the work, her thoughts and everything, and it was just cleared up by AI, would the university accept that?
The university should not have a problem in accepting that, because these ideas are Roxanne's ideas. It's just that the phrasing word differently to make it more improve on it.
They have
All right?
a checker to check if Roxanne ideas or AI.
As I mentioned previously earlier in the session, the AI detector is enabled within Turnitin. As we identified earlier, sometimes it's not accurate. All right, it's not accurate. So, and I could get the nascent policy, the working policy that's on, but certainly some of you would have seen where you need to find out, is this something that is allowed in your class setting? So if your faculty or teacher do not give you that, how you can use AI, you should not use it. All right. So this is where we have to say, okay, fine. I really want to use a social ethical. We have to ensure that this is something your teacher or somebody has given you that freedom or liberty to use AI in such way. All right. And even if there are some persons who don't, acknowledging how you do is important. This is part of our nation policy this year. is part of our nation policies. The following AI declaration statement should be included at the end of the assignment, all right? So this here is part of the wider university policy. I will try and get the actual one that we are subscribing to. So one pager, I think it's a one pager or two pager. And, you know, sometimes your faculty may not be aware, but the key thing is here, students are using AI, and we want persons to use it from a social responsible standpoint. Right, and that's important. I can't stress that much. And social responsible standpoint, which means that you want to understand the parameters in which your faculty or the person teaching would allow in that sense. But I mean, it's a tool. I mean, I don't know if any faculty is going to say don't use Grammarly. Do they tell you that? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Exactly.
I didn't even realize that Grammarly was AI.
Yes,
But
Grammarly
that's what
uses
I'm now hearing for the first time.
Grammarly right now uses an improved. And so Mr. Mohammed, sorry, and shared the document in the chat. All right, I want to give Janelle. Go ahead, Janelle, and then we move on to group 2.
No, I just want to say in terms of AI, in terms of IR, I know one of the things they tell you to do, just like you said, do the disclaimer, and some lecturers will even ask you to share links. So when you go on those AI platforms, sometimes they have a link you could copy to, I guess, for them to see exactly what your prompt was or what kind of information you get. I guess that's a way of ensuring that it is not copied and pasted wholesale.
Excellent, Janelle.
Yeah.
It shows this trend. That's an excellent suggestion. All right. Excellent suggestion. You're showing the historicity. In other words, you start to the end, and so they can make that, you declare that you actually provide. It's like showing your code when you're doing programming and so forth. Kalisa, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to make a contribution, well, just to state something based on Roxanne's input and Carolyn regarding the letter. So I would have used it, I think, ChatGPT in terms of a letter. But I think when the letter generated the information, as you indicated, it refines or improves the information. For me, I thought it was too perfect, and that's not how I write. So I think in terms of understanding, we take into consideration the integrity of the university, but I also think that we have to be the integrity of ourselves as well, and know ourselves and how we write as well, to say that I'm going to produce a document that's not even the way I write. So even if it is we're using it as a tool, we have to understand. I think it's better to understand yourself and to be really understanding that this is not me. So I'm not going to produce this document. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to my original, but I may adjust some of the things, as you indicated, as a tool, a guide. So I think that we need to take cognizance of that as well.
And you are so correct, because you are still in the driver's seat. You're still in the driver's seat. You are the one making that decision. And you're the one deciding, hey, this doesn't sound like me. The tone sounds a little bit different. And you can see that when persons one tone, they start this way and that way, you can see, okay, that's evidence that they may have used AI, you know, but again, we want to be sure that we do that. I see Roxanne, your mic is on. Did group 2 present? I didn't know if group 2 present. Or Roxanne, Kalisha, for group 2.
Group 2?
Yeah,
Group 2, I'm not sure, because I remember, I believe Mohammed, Kalisha, and Weeks, I remember those names. I'm not sure if we was group 2.
Group 2,
No, Ryan, we had group 3. Sorry.
All right, okay, nice. Okay.
So group 2 would have been Denisha, Kathleen, Martha, Priya, Tilo, Jamie,
Yes, correct.
Claudette.
Yes.
So how did you guys feel about or go through this whole process?
Okay, well, my mic is on mute, so I'll start, Martha, and any other group member could chime in after. But what our prompts, or the section we had was, I think, 6 and 3, I can't remember, but one was a citation assistant, and as a critical reviewer. We spent a lot of time on the citation assistant, and what that really demonstrated to me was the shortcomings of some platforms, in particular ChatGPT, when we're looking for, and if you use ChatGPT before trying to find resources or sources or citations, you know that ChatGPT creates fictitious sources. So yes, that is exactly what it did in our context. First, one of the group members used a more general prompt, and then we used a more specific prompt. I also created a prompt that asked, told the AI to ask for clarification, and it did ask for clarification with follow-up questions. But even in that context, it provided some sources that were not real, or that with some DUIs that were not so it showed the limitations there as well, because I personally find that ChatGPT don't perform as a citation tool. Maybe in a different format, but not citation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
that's my
Marco, yeah, thank you for that. And that's so well put across so that we are the ones deciding. So you verify that it was incorrect. And that's what we need to do. By the way, if you're using the 4.0, you'll get less. And depending on how you would have phrased it, you would have, so they want you to pay money to get the one that hallucinates less.
Yes.
So my recommendation to you, use
Yes.
Copilot, because Copilot
Copilot.
uses a 4.0 API engine from the same OpenAI company, or Gemini. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
It's good to use more than one, so you can become proficient in using one and say, okay, I really appreciate how Claude does things.
Yes.
Persons who say, okay, they use Claude exclusively because it really is more accurate. But
Okay,
Marco, thank you for representing group 2, group 3. Group 3.
Nice. Good day, sir.
Good day,
Right,
Ryan.
come on, let's get the info. Right, so we looked at 7 and 9. Right. Sadly, the group on a whole wasn't able to complete 9. However, while she was coming out of the group, I placed it in the chat GPT and got a response. So the prompt, you all hear me, right?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, sir. The prompt I got, we use was, sorry.
Okay.
Right. I am doing a literature review on the topic of crime. Can you assist me to find the relevant research articles on the contributing factors of the crime in Trinidad and Tobago among youths ages 15 to 30 within the last 5 years? So that was our prompt. When I placed it in ChatGPT, I realized that the response was not relevant to what I asked. So I changed one word, which was find. So instead of saying, can you assist me to find the relevant research, I wrote, can you assist me to list the relevant research? So I realized you really have to be specific. And that is as far as how the group would have reached.
Okay, great. I see you're getting hand over problems from Altinis and others. That's great, really good. And if you try that same thing in a different generator, like maybe Gemini, you may get a different response and different altogether. All right. I want to say thank you. I know that we have expanded our time by 17 minutes, but most of you remained. So I want to say thank you so much. By the way, this diagram was generated by AI. You notice it's spelled thank you wrong. But I kept it and it left out the and. I tell it to put it, but it did what it want. It still looks cool, but it's not correct. So thank you so much. I just want you to give me your key takeaways. We're going to put the official evaluation link in the chat, but I want to give you your key takeaways. You can use the URL here, or you can certainly do it from that standpoint as well.
So Dr. Hill, the session ended?
The session is supposed to be from 1 to 3.
You sure we now having fun though?
For real.
What kind of anticlimactic thing is this?
It's like
Dr.
bye.
Hill,
I agree.
what is
I
that?
agree.
Dr. Hill, I think I'm still not at ease with the AI in our university context. Primarily because I have been looking at Turnitin, their online chats, where countless lecturers from across the world from universities that use Turnitin as their plagiarism software. Are failing students left, right, and center because of AI detection. And I can't remember how I got there, but when I started looking at the comments and the discussions in this forum about students stating, so lecturers are giving their scenarios about students, the failing students, and because they have this AI detection that's enabled in Turnitin. So apart from plagiarism, I think a lot of us mix up the plagiarism and AI writing detection, which is two different things. So what they're saying is that the plagiarism, we have been doing that for years in a university setting, we understand. But many students don't understand, in particular students who use Grammarly, because I've been using Grammarly for years before AI was so prominent. And now we have all these apps that are embedding AI into their software, right? And refining the writing, even your emails that is now using Gemini to rewrite your emails and craft it. So I think that is a little gray area where students may click on refining, because what the lecturers were saying in the Turnitin forum is that students were reporting that they did use Grammarly, but they are not aware that Grammarly is now using a very strong AI, has a very strong AI component that is refining your writing. So you may not go to a writing assistant or use AI as a writing assistant, but Grammarly's function is now rewriting your sentences with this AI function, and they are now getting penalized for it. Now, as a PhD student, and who has to produce original work, my concern is that you attempt to use this and people are now criticizing your work, or what do we call it, academic misconduct, or so that is really my concern, in particular, since we don't have a very clear policy across the board. That has always been my concern. How do we move forward? Do we stay clear from this, or what do we do?
And Martha, I thank you for this, because persons are not aware, and I think awareness is one of the responsibility for faculty. Students may not understand that Grammarly has made that shift to using more AI, generative AI in the algorithm and in their software. And because some of these tools, they draw on APIs. You notice the avatar? The avatar program was there before, but you had actually have to type text. Now it's actually drawing on the API from AI, makes it much more, it makes it different, makes it scary for some persons. So we have to do our job as faculty and ensure that the students know that when you put it in Grammarly right now, it's restructuring your writing, and it's a possibility to detect, which is why some universities do not enable that that tool, because it can give you that kind of false thing. And let's be honest, we don't tell the students don't use Grammarly.
But that was the argument in the chat. That was the argument. So some lecturers, in particular, someone from the UK, say he's absolutely not failing anyone.
Yes.
For if he sees anything with regards to AI detection, because they are not making it clear that Turnitin has this function. That Grammarly has this function, and it is now being picked up. Now, I used a part of my PhD proposal. This was some years ago, so we are sure that that was not assisted at all by any software.
Exactly.
And sometimes you're seeing, and even all writings, all letters from undergrad, anything, and just for me to test to see what happens. And you are seeing its detection, because if you understand how AI detection is how it goes, they look for burstiness if your writing seems very robotic. And the way academic writing is phrased is exactly that. You write very straightforward. You're not writing with this fluff and So, I'm still on the fence.
And still the foreign exchange, the foreign second language speakers, that's also a challenge for them, because the second language speakers, they would write in a way that not necessarily native English, and so that's one of the things we're seeing, that they may not be being unfair to them.
To them.
Roxanne, you were saying something?
Sorry, no.
I
Okay.
have a lecturer. When at the beginning of the class, she told us about AI. So she told us she's excited about it. And she's not going to like penalize us and stop us from using these software programs. However, she said she don't expect it to write our word for word, right? There need to be some level of research and time you put into your paper personally. But say if like you want to ask Grammarly to like sentence structure, errors and whatnot. She said she has no problem with that. That is what it's there for. And she was more accepting to it because she said at the end of the day, you can't stop AI. It's gonna get more powerful.
Correct.
So you have to actually try and adapt to what it is now before you just like mentally block it. And by the time you reach like further away in development, that's when you're now looking to learn about it. It's gonna be extremely hard. So she just tell us to be careful with it. And so from that, I would like you have to be guided by your university and the lecturer.
Yeah.
Because I had another one who said, don't use it. So
Right.
one
Right.
say use it, one said don't.
Right. And so this is where you have the different options, and that option is provided in the policy to guide faculty. If some of them are not comfortable to say don't use it, well, don't use it. But
No,
again,
but is it the university policy we should follow or the lecturer's directive?
well, it gives the lecturers options. In other words, it says, okay, hey, depending on your faculty specific area, would you encourage students to use a restrictive use policy? Is it a mixed use policy, or is it, so it gives them, because not all faculty subject area are the same thing, and so they ought to be guided by that.
Oh, so we always take your guidance from your lecturer, not from the policy, because the policy gives them the opportunity to decide how much use.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have a policy right now. We have something that is developing, and Mr. Mohammed would have posted it in the chat.
Okay.
Interim. You use the word interim. Interim, Martha. Interim.
ChatGPT is
But
2
I'm
years old.
hoping that this has been useful, because this is supposed to really open up our appetite to see how well and open up our mind and thinking differently, and how you can use it, how you should not use it, when and how and why you would not use it. You now have an informed position, because you're aware of how it's being used right now. And we will be having follow-up sessions like this in semester 2. I know someone was asking, PB, was it PB? I think I lost track.
Yes, it's me.
So we will have a follow-up session, because it did request. We did have 100 and something persons registered, and only about 30 something came. So we want to continue offering this, certainly, because we recognize our commitment to raising awareness on using the tools as well.
Looking forward to that, Dr. Hill.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Karen, if you can put that comment on the Menti, and we also have the end of session evaluation from that space there in the chat. Let me put it again. Mr. Garcia would have put it in. I do not know that AI is now in Grammarly. Yes, it is in Grammarly, very much so. I mean, Grammarly would put itself out of business if it didn't, because someone else would get the idea. All right, we'll stop the recording and then we'll wait on a little bit.